Hey, hello, good morning or goedemorgen or something like this. It's been said here in Netherlands. I'm really happy to be able to present to you today. My name is Stoyan Halkaliev. I'm coming from Germany. I have a startup there which does a nursing documentation solution. It's called Nurse IT Institute. And we decided 2015 to build everything on FHIR. So we decided no SQL backend, no SQL statements. We just want to have concentrate ourselves on the front end and create beautiful, useful apps and make sure and hope that someone will take care of the data at the back. And at this time, 2015, there was the FHIR promise. It was still kind of a work in progress. But we decided to bet our future on it, and hopefully it is coming. It's not that fast that we have wanted, but still there is a good expectation that FHIR will be the future standard. So we're concentrating on creating nursing documentation software, but what we noticed very quickly was that in 80% of the German hospitals, at least, I don't know how it is worldwide, there is no wireless coverage in the hospital itself. So if you put a nurse with a mobile device and she walks around and needs the data or needs to do her assessments, document her medications, there was just no wireless access. So that means that she needs to put everything on paper, needs to go back to her stationary PC, enter all the data, and that's actually exactly what the digitalization should not be about. So the question, what should be the next, what should be the development environment to develop FHIR apps that run on mobile devices? That was a big question, and we tried different technologies. We ended up using Delphi, and thank you, Graham. Without you, this could have been possible. But even with the time, we noticed that the Delphi compiler is not the most performant one. So we've been dealing with a lot of issues on this front, and then as I learned about Flutter last year, it had the promise of putting everything together, having one platform for one development platform for all mobile devices with completely new concept. So I was kind of hooked. So as disclaimer, I talked about little my company, but I'm just as a fanboy today. I'm not a Google employee, so everything is based on my thoughts. But as I said, I'm a fanboy. So what is Flutter? What is all about, and why I think it is a very good fit for FHIR development? It's basically said best on the website. So the idea is to have native performance, to have beautiful UIs, and it needs to be developed fast. So the development of mobile UIs, either you have to go for the native UIs to have the best performance, or you need to go to a mobile framework that mitigates, but you don't have the complete user experience. And Google decided to do something about it, by creating this new operating system, FHIR, they decided also to create a new development environment. And before we talk theory, here just a couple of examples that I took from the website. This is from an app called Reflectly that creates a very beautiful user interface with 60 FPA per second. So that is stuff that you can do with Flutter. Another very good example is this one, a kind of very dynamic mobile shop. And you can see that on the left side it's an Apple device, and on the right side is an Android device. So basically it is the same look and feel. And with this framework you can program both devices at the same time. But we're on a FHIR developer conference, we're in a medical space. So is there anything in the medical space too? So I found this very nice application which is created basically as a design template. Someone wanted to reimagine an app to calculate BMI. And then another one said, okay, I can implement this in Flutter. And I said, okay, having BMI calculated, it could be actually a very nice example of taking this height and weight from the observation resource and then actually calculate the BMI and then write it back in the observation resource. So this is kind of collaboration that's very typical in the Flutter space. Everything is open source. Google open sourced everything. They actually, I think they develop in the GitHub repository, so you are always up to date and you know what is going on there. This could be a little tricky because the updates are not always compatible between each other, but we're now in the preview version 2. There will be a Flutter Live event in London on the 4th of December where I think the release version of Flutter will be officially announced, so the API is stable. So how Flutter differentiates to the other development environments. So if we get the classic native app development, we have it, the structure is the same, Objective-C or Android with Java. You have your app, you have your native code, then you have your platform with your OM widgets, canvas, events, and services like location, audio. So basically, for every platform, you need to know the exactly coding conventions. You need to develop two completely separate apps and try to make them look as much as similar as possible. But basically, we are bound to the APIs from your platform. The next step, well, it depends how you see it. Actually, that was the first step because in iOS 0.1, Apple didn't have a native SDK. They encouraged the people to work with the web views. But the web view is kind of mitigation. So you develop your JavaScript, your application in JavaScript. You have your web view, which hosts your application. But in order to access the local services, you need a special bridge component. And this bridge component can take a lot of time because you have a context switch. You have to go from your platform to the other platform. So it's kind of hard separation. But this has been the way to develop hybrid applications that work on all platforms for some time now, and people have a lot of experience with this. The next evolution of the hybrid development was React.js and Reactive View, which basically tried to simplify the development and abstract from the platform widgets and create a so-called OM widgets. But the idea here was that the reactive programming is a completely different paradigm. You have your data in data streams and change is propagated all the time. That means that in a regular programming languages, if you have A equals B plus C, when you evaluate this expression, once you calculated A, it will stay always the same independently of if B or C changes. In a reactive programming paradigm, if you calculate A, if you define A equal B plus C, every time B or C changed, A will also change. So you have basically have to turn your mind around if you're very classical developer and then you're confronted with reactive development. It looks like a magic and there is a lot of boilerplate code. So Google had the advantage of being late in the game or actually decided later to do this and could learn about all the developments that happened before that. So we have the Flutter architecture, which also provides reactive style views. So you have these possibilities to work with streams, to propagate your changes through your framework, or very helpful when you have RESTful APIs, you can put all the data in streams. But they looked into different languages. First, go with JavaScript or maybe with other languages. And at the end, they decided to use Dart. Dart is also a language designed and developed by Google. But it has very special features. It can be compiled ahead of time. That means it can generate native code for the mobile platforms, but also can run in a virtual machine, so you can have a very quick and very nice developer experience. And what they also did is to completely abstract from the local widget infrastructure of the native platform. So what you're missing here is that, I don't know if I can, so here was the OM widget library of the platform, and this is now completely gone. Everything is rendered in the app, and they're just using the canvas as a painting environment. That means that you can actually create an app that looks exactly the same, one-to-one, on all mobile devices. And for a particular use cases like a corporate layout or stuff like this, this is eventually a good thing. They went also one step further and said everything is a widget. It's not like the UI components, but everything, including your app, your scaffold, your app bar, your drawer, snack bar. And if you want to put a user interface, you should not subclass classes, but you should go for composition. So composition of inheritance is a big principle in Flutter. Here's an example. If you want your view to be centered, you just put it in a center widget. So we have here, that's the result, hello world with a star. So we have a column, two text and icon, and then this is put in a center widget, so it will be centered. What you can see here that there are two default themes or skins, Material and Cupertino. Material is more the implementation of the Google material design. Cupertino tries to implement a visual design as iOS. But you can mix them. Your app can decide to switch on the fly, or you can create a completely new one. The cool thing is that all the widgets are material enabled, so you don't get ugly design. You get nice design by default. It is material design. The first thing you run an app, it actually is in a material design, so you can start twinkling from here. And you can see this is the Dart framework, the Flutter Dart framework, and only the engine itself is in C++. It's implemented natively then in all platforms, the compiler, and it's based on Skia. And Skia is the painting engine that Google developed. It's an open source that is also built in the Chrome browser. So that's something that's really performant and really optimized during the time. So how this composition of inheritance looks like? Well, actually, you put everything together inside each other. So if we have a layout like this, you have here 4 columns. The first column is the image. The second column by itself is also a container that is 3 rows, that inside the first row, you have 2 columns, and then you have icon and text. And we have here the button section, which is 3 rows, and then 2 columns with children. So, and inside here, the button, you have also the icon and the text. And you can imagine that this could be a really heavy to parse. You know, you have this huge widget tree that needs to be parsed with 60 FPS per second. So you actually have this tree, but they made pretty good job in actually optimizing caching and all this stuff. And the design of Flutter itself is that you actually define which widgets contain parts that can change and which not. So if you have a stateless widget like items on the screen that doesn't change with the time, there is no, you have boxes, you have borders, you have icons, whatever stuff that doesn't change based on your state, you put this in a stateless widget, and everything that can change, like edit fields or stuff that updates with the time with data coming from your stream, you put in a stateful widget. So that's the renderer can optimize and know what to cache and what not. And because everything is a widget, there is a huge widget library already available on the website. So from list views, stepper, divider, whatever, and I'm constantly amazed every day what widgets are there. If you think about something, then probably there is an official widget, and if there was not an official one, someone already created it. So it's a really vibrant community. Everything is based on Dart, and Dart is kind of one of the topics that people discuss a lot in the community. Why Dart, and why not something else, and why we need to learn a new language and all this stuff. And there is a very nice blog from one of the Google Flutter architects, why Dart. But this is actually really, really, really good language. The more I work with it, the more I like it. And yesterday there was a new release, I will talk about this later, which introduced some very special feature which I was waiting a lot for. But it's basically open source web programming language. Web programming language. When Google introduced it, they actually wanted to have something like TypeScript in order to better support the developers with developing web apps. So there is a compiler, JavaScript, a Dart to JavaScript compiler. So you can actually share your code between a web app and Flutter app. It's class-based, single inheritance. It's object-oriented, C-style brackets. So for the most people that work with JavaScript, actually not a big problem. Interfaces, abstract classes, generic, strong typing with Dart 2 was a big advantage, because now you can actually properly test your apps and write your mocks and stuff like this. There is a huge amount of languages as libraries. There is a package manager, a virtual machine. And this virtual machine is especially helpful. I will show you, I have a small demo, because it allows a very quick development cycle. And once you are ready and you release your app, it will compile to a native language. I have a demo here. Let me see if I can switch between the screens. Or maybe I will just bring the Android Studio. So here I have the Android Studio, and I have basically the minimal Flutter app open. When you create a new Flutter app with Android Studio, and you install the Flutter plugin and the Dart language plugin, the new app will look like this. You have your My App class, which has a widget builder. So this will build a material app with title Flutter Data. We'll have the color blue, and then we'll have a home page. And the home page itself, so we have a stateless widget is the app, but then inside we have a stateful widget, which will just change a counter and will display this counter on the screen. So that is basically the widget here. We have app bar, we have body with center columns, you have push the button. There is the variable that will change over time, and there is the increment button. So if I run this in the simulator, so where are you? Here's the simulator. And you notice I have two simulators, so the Android simulator is also running in the background. So when I run this, it will compile, it will go there, and it will just run. It's nothing special about it. The special thing will come after this. Once the application is running, there is a feature called hot reload, where you can actually change something in your source code, and this will be immediately, without full redeployment, installed on your device, on your mobile device, if you have a real one. So you see, it took 15 seconds to compile this one. Now we're here running, and this is a different resolution, and I now cannot, can I zoom this? hardware window. How I can zoom the emulator? Oh, this is really stupid now. Does someone know how to zoom?
You can window, remove bezel, and then you can resize the window.
Okay, window, remove bezel. That's the, exactly, so that's really nice. Thank you very much. I want to put it here on the side. So you see I have a plus button here. I click here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what I'm doing is basically showing this counter. So let's say I don't like this icon there. So I have here the icon. You see that's also here on the side. I say, no, I want to remove. So I write here, remove. So I have another icon. And then because I want to see how it looks like, I make now the hot reload. And you see my icon is here already minus. You notice that my state didn't went away, so it kept all my state. But now I say, okay, I have a minus icon. I actually want to change the behavior. I want to make minus here. And because it is now minus, I actually also want to change my color to red. And now I run it here, and you see immediately changes, and also it changed the behavior. And this is like amazing for mobile development. If you've done a native mobile development and had all this compile, build, deploy, whatever framework, that's a really huge benefit. And the same works on the Android device. If we have some time, I will run it. And the really funny part is you can actually deploy it simultaneously on both devices or on all devices that you have plugged in. So with one refresh, you can actually see how your app looks on all these different devices. So let's continue with the presentation. I need to stop this. Oop. So where's my presentation? Okay, where we go from here. So I created a generator that already there. That basically takes a FHIR-Profile and tries to create an app. So my UI is not quite ready yet. Because of reasons that the version is right not really stable, but I'm going to compile it for the release version. There is a script, shell script, that generates command line interface based on the Redux platform. So what we ended up with Flutter, in moment is a little discussion about it. What is the right architecture for it? Because for classical application developments, we have MVVM, MVC, and whatever architectures that have been designed or tested through the time. Flutter is a new kind of a platform which where people started thinking about different approaches. So official one is the block business logic containers, I think, called from Google, where you work with things in input and output streams. But a lot of people came from Redux. There are like 10 architectures right now, and it's really not easy to decide which one is the right one for your application. So right now, the shell script I'm using generates a Redux app and can take a normal API. JSON API. I will also demonstrate this in a minute. But the idea is that I actually want to create templates for all these architectures. So when you create a medical app, you decide which one to use yourself. Another very cool feature that was released yesterday, actually there was a Dart 2.1 release yesterday, are the so-called mix-ins. So mix-ins are something between classes for class inheritance and interfaces. But Flutter supports interfaces for a long time. But actually, mix-ins, you can provide the implementation too. So it is a perfect candidate to implement extensions in Flutter. So you don't clutter your class structure there. And you implement the extensions as a separate hierarchy or as a separate classes or objects, because mix-ins are also actually kind of objects. And then you plug them whatever you need them in your app, so that your app actually behaves like having these features itself. So at the end, it's not really recognizable if this is a duck that can swim, or well, the duck will have this swim property as at the same level as all other properties. So it makes actually the code generation and the code maintenance for, especially for FHIR apps, really good. This is something that I was really waiting for, because they changed the syntax, and now yesterday it's released, and on the 4th of December there will be the official Google release. So once this happens, I will also open source my UI, which helps running the script. Future topics, so that's what is very hot on my plate right now, is the support of FHIR-4. I learned 2 days ago about the structured data capture extensions for the questionnaires. This is something that I think is really important, because generating app from profiles is a good thing, but once you do this, you will quickly realize that questionnaires are actually very helpful in the daily work. So we have, I want to make the architecture selection, adaptive responsive layout, so that runs not only on phone but also on device, on tablets. And test cases generation and continuous integration support. This is actually one of the reasons why I started creating generator app. Sorry. The whole infrastructure, the whole boilerplate code, and especially regulatory support, once we actually master the technology, we will be having the next big challenge is how we actually bring our apps into the market. So regulatory challenges for medical device software are many. And once you finish with the technology, it doesn't really automatically mean that you have a product that you can sell in this area. There are many steps once you finish the app development to actually certify your app and can be put on the market. And there are new regulations, especially in Europe. And from May 2020, there will be much more regulations. So I'm working with one startup that we can, from the generator tool, once you have created your use case, to be able to create the documentation framework for your regulatory requirements. So you have a starting point, what needs to be done in order to bring your application to the market. And right now, I'm really interested about FHIR packages. That's this new thing that unfortunately, I think is running on the same time slot. That will allow you to build a complete use case, combine all profiles, and take the data, the description of your use case, and then generate a complete app from this. So I wanted to show one app that I generated, how this looks like. Okay, that's, yeah, exactly. So how much time I have? 10 minutes, okay. So this is, I will just quickly show something that the generator produced. Let me see if I can plug my phone then, so you can see that it's also deployable. start this one. Cancel. Oh, it's on the wrong screen, of course. iPhone. So, okay. Now I have here the BMI calculator, which I showed before. It is now hitting my FHIR repository, but it's actually here a really simple one. And I'm sorry that you cannot see here is actually a person that grows up and down. Here on the phone you can actually see it better. I think the colors are not so good, and this is something that you also can rotate, and once you enter the data, you calculate and it tells you that your BMI is actually out of range. So this was really a good test to have something ready and then just plug the RESTful interface and see how it works. Let me see, where's the other one? So this one was used to generate, to test the RESTful API capabilities. This is all generated from one fairly simple JSON, I must say. This is from Hacker News. So I had problem with parsing the JSON resources from my server, but with the new features that are provided in Dart, this is already capable will be able to do this. And this framework has already built some edits. It has already built in sortings and also search. So when we create a patient list and stuff like this, the boilerplate code for all these resources will be available so that you can actually start immediately testing your use case, testing what your data entry could be and stuff like this. So the idea is really to generate a boilerplate app that has a default design that's nice to use, and then from there you can take it to your designer and create something really special like the BMI calculator if you really want to go for your corporate designs. So, questions?
Are there any Flutter widgets for FHIR resources? Because I
No.
imagine like representing the patient, that's pretty standard. Right?
Yeah. So that's what I'm building. So I actually, right now I built manually the FHIR resources. There are like 3 ways how you can build JSON resources. So the easiest way was just like take it and then convert it manually to Dart code. There was a standard library that just actually creates a map, but you still need to know your structure. So it's better to actually work with classes. So I talked to Graham, and we'll try to utilize his Delphi code generator to actually create a full library of the Dart classes for the FHIR resources. This will be part of the open sourcing of the email. But I was waiting, as I said, I really needed these mixins in order to implement the extensions because it gets way too complicated to implement them the classical way. But this is the idea, so that to have like now we have .NET implementation, Pascal implementation, Java libraries, so to have a official Dart JSON parser library with this. And the UI comes on top. Yes?
In terms of timelines for that, is this something that we should include at least a placeholder for in release 4?
The question was in terms of timeline, if there should be a placeholder in release 4. This is a really good question. I haven't really thought about this. When you plan to release 4?
Early December.
Early December. Oh, that's too early. give me, I'll probably, they will release on the 4th of December the official Flutter release. So I need to double check there. I need to tweak the FHIR resource generator to support mixins. And I have no test cases for this, so I need to build the test cases. So
It doesn't have to work.
okay.
Will you have a stable web presence that we can point
Yes, 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 yes. I will provide you the information. So I already registered the domain, but haven't been able to put anything on it. But I will try to do this for in the next week or something. Then I will. And I will really love if. Sorry. No. If there are more people joining.
Is there data or Flutter stuff to handle the OAuth part of it for Smart on Fire?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
The OAuth security type?
Oh, yeah. That was something that I really wanted to actually have managed, but there is some issue with the Dart OAuth library. And people are looking into this. So right now, it actually can only log in on with Google login or on the Google FHIR store, but it should be a general OAuth implementation. And a lot of people are looking into this. But this generating smart app, actually that was the ultimate goal, to just have your profile and then you have a smart app. And I've heard that, for example, Cerner has a full support of all resources, not only the Argonaut profile, so should be able to work out some kind of way automatically to deploy things. So that's in the future. Everything that can be automated should be made automatic. Another question? So if I manage to excite someone, so please get in touch. There's so much work that I will impossibly be able to do all of it, but I abstracted the profiles, the code generation part, so they are like kind of templates, can be generally be used also for other languages, but now the concentration is on Flutter and Dart. And maybe on the next conference I will do a bigger workshop where we can install and play with it. That was way too short time for it. Thank you very much.